Okay, hello and welcome everybody. My name is Ben Munson. I am a Senior Technology Specialist with FarmQA, and today I'm going to walk through next level scouting. So really this is the enhancements we've made specifically to the scouting side of our platform, our FarmQA mobile app and web view for the 2024 growing season. So there's been a lot of new things, and we're going to go through those feature by feature. And then in addition, there's a few features that got in end of last year. So if you have time, I'll cover those as well. So with that, housekeeping things, we're using Microsoft Teams, so put your comments in the chat of the meeting. I'm going to cover those at the end. So please feel free to ask anything, and I'll just cover that at the end, and we will share this video on our website and YouTube after the fact, so you can rewatch it or share it. So with that, I'm going to cover a couple things. The first one being we added the ability to edit your scouting reports from the mobile app. So previously, we had a lot of feedback from customers, and we allowed for edits, but only from a web view. And so for a lot of people, that meant from a laptop. So we've added the ability now to do it directly from the app, and I'll walk through that. We've added the ability to include, if you have imagery as an add-on within FarmQA, you can include that in the map itself of the PDF. We've had requests as well for your map drawing. So if you, let's say, drew the location of a pivot arm, we would include that on the scouting report PDF, but as a separate submap. We can now merge that into the main map of the PDF. We made some other kind of general report improvements, which we'll talk through. And then another big one, we added internal notes, internal questions. So this is a scenario where if you're with an agronomy firm, you want to take some internal notes between your junior scouts and your senior scouts that you don't want to be visible to the clients. We now support that. And then in addition to that, we can put full page maps on both scouting reports and recommendations, just so the map itself is bigger. And we had requests for that as well. So with that, I'll cover Q&A at the end like it says. I'm going to walk through a couple of just before and after snapshots of what I'm talking about here, as that it might be easier to do that in a slideshow before I go into the live demo. So with that, a couple things I mentioned was the scenario of the pivot arm. On the left-hand side, this is if you're an existing FarmQA customer, if you use our map drawing tool, you're accustomed to that, creating a sub map underneath your report and not interacting or being included in the main map. So now this is after. So with this new feature, you can now just have that in the one map instead of having it being separate every time you do a map drawing. So I'll walk through exactly how you do that. Additionally, we've got the ability to remove pins. And so we have clients that like to have a pin, other clients that do not. So we made that a PDF option or a toggle when you export. And so the use case that I would share here is a lot of clients will say, well, if I only drop a single point in the field, that's indicating that's a summary. So everything that I enter is applicable to the entire field. So that one pin might be misleading, saying I only went to that one spot in the physical field itself. So now with that option, it's really just identical report, identical data. We are just hiding that pin from the map as to remove any sort of confusion to the client about where you may have been in the field. So again, if you want the pins, they're still there. If you don't want them, you can remove them optionally. We can also include the imagery on the report, like I said. So this is what that would look like in particular. So this is an NDVI map. You can choose what index you want. So if it's just a visual image, if you prefer something like an M-Savvy index earlier in the season, you can choose that. And then we'll also publish the date. So as a viewer of this report, you can see when that image was from. So I went back and grabbed an image from, actually I did a report and backfill it to July, so you had more of a dynamic image to look at. So with that, we can also do a full page map. So if let's say you want to start to utilize that feature where the imagery is included in the report, you can now make that a full page, second page onto your PDF. So on the right-hand side, if that client wants to see that bigger than what we'd show here on an 8.5, 11 sheet of paper, then that's what you can get. In addition, that full page map view also works on a consolidated report. So I know this one's a little harder to see, but this, in this case, is actually a collection of 6 or 7 fields, so a consolidation. But then you can have one large map down at the bottom. So this is at request of by customers as well, where traditionally this was just one small map and included maybe 7 or 8 fields that were spread out. It was really hard to see the detail of those fields, or now you can go full screen plus the imagery. plus the consolidated report. So it's pretty cool stuff, a lot of additional options there. And then with the internal notes, showing those side by side. So as I mentioned, the concept here is if you are an internal user, agronomy firm, grower, whoever it may be, you can set up your users to say, these are the people who can see my internal notes versus not being able to see internal notes. So in this case, I'm set up as a crop scout, and I put a note for my agronomist in here, but now this PDF is what the client would see, and you notice that that comment is not included in the PDF. So there's a couple things we'll walk through on how that works, but that is the concept that we've added in. So with that, let's go live demo and let's show you guys how to do some of these new things. And as I'm pulling this up, what I'd say is, we get a lot of requests for PDF tweaks. I know people won't like to really customize their reports, and so that's really what we're trying to allow for here is some additional levers and dials that you can turn. And if at any point you're overwhelmed with the options, just reach out to FarmQA support, and we'll help you come up with the best option that works for you. And then in addition to that, once you come up with the PDF option that works well for you, we will remember that on your device. And so you don't have to play with these settings week over week, day over day. They're going to be remembered once you come up with the style that works. So first thing, I'm going to open up. So this is our scouting app, but it's run through a web browser, so I can demo this more efficiently. And so as I show this, just note that this is exactly what you'd see on your phone. If you ran it on a tablet, it would be very similar to this. And so a couple things to note here is we've got, let me make this a little bit bigger. So this will run, in this case, I'm going to be online in my demo. And what I will do in this case is I'm going to mock that I will scout this field. So this test field 1, I'm going to create a scouting report. So we'll say overall, it looks good. And I will fill out a few general inputs here, just at random. And so as I do that, I'm scouting just as you would normally, and I'm going to submit that. So in the past, the second that you hit the submit button, you cannot edit this report unless you're back on the web or from a computer. Now what we've added is I've submitted this, and it still goes back to the web, but underneath this scouting tab or within this field, I'll start here, I can see I've submitted that report. Let's see what field was that for. It was test 1. So I submitted that report. Let's find the most recent one I got here. But the key here is, this is in progress. So if I go back to the past reports down here, you can say I did that test field 1 report. And so what I can do, this is a new function, is that you can swipe left on that tile. I might have to go full screen in this this mock-up. Do this. Sorry, the web view of the app, I got to refresh this and see if it'll work. It's a swipe left in your past reports section. Here we go. So that's what I'm intending to show, is that I know this is full screen, but this would do the same thing on your Android or iPhone. Swipe left on that report, and now I can delete that out altogether, or I can edit. So clicking on edit, it pulls me back into the report mode, even though it's been submitted. And so in this case, you can say I misspelled overall, so I could fix up my spelling errors. But you can also fully contribute new content. So I could say weed pressure in southwest corner. I can add new pictures. So I'm in edit mode. In my initial report, if you noticed, I did not have any pictures, but in this case, I will include one. So you can do that all from edit mode, and you can attach pictures from your photo library, and you can draw on the map as well. So those can all be additions that come through as part of the edit mode. So I'll draw out where I saw the weeds in this case. So we'll draw a shape. And now at this point, I'll resubmit that. So doing so, it just made all those edits to that report. So now it says I've edited that, and that change is essentially live and back in the web view. I will see those edits. And so now if I generate this out to a PDF, like I'm sending it to a client, you'll see those new pictures, the new edits that I just made are going to be included in that PDF. And so here, open up the PDF. You notice the first time I had misspelled overall, and now I've got that additional comment I made, plus the pictures and notations. So just to prove the point that the edits went through real time from the app. And then additionally, back on the web view, if I open this up and I find that same report that the test field 1, you can see that all those changes are live here as well with those pictures and map drawings. So I know this one's a long time coming. That's a pretty common support request, is how do I edit my reports if I made a mistake or I need to change something. So you can do that. And then as well, if I mentioned the delete. So hitting delete, that will delete that report out, and that will remove that. The other thing to mention is that you can also access that from the map view. So if I do want to click on a field and I see I've got previous reports down here, if I click on the number 4, I can now do that same sliding motion. So I can edit that report from this view, and now I've got that. I can delete out my pictures, whatever I need to do here. And I should be able to delete map drawings as well if I need to. So with that, that's the edit mode. And a couple of things I just mentioned for some niche cases is that, let's say you did have multiple observation points. You can add entirely new observation points to this report. So I'll say do a second aphid count, and we're going to do a growth stage. So now this report has 2 observation pins. One was added initially, and the second was in edit mode. If it's a consolidator, or if it's a merge report where you've got, say, 4 or 5 scouts in this field, if they're all submitted, if all 4 of those scouts have submitted, one person can collectively edit all those at one time. So what I mean by that is, now I've submitted that update, and if I come back in this field and I go to edit that one again, now I'll see both those points, and I can edit those independently. So the scenario of you've got 5 interns, they're out scouting, I'm the head agronomist. After they submit, I can go back in and review those from the app before they go out to the grower. And let's say they had, mistyped this, or they put the wrong growth stage in. I can edit that as a manager, submit that, and now email that report out with ever having to go back online. So hopefully that's what everybody's looking for when they mentioned editing reports. That is part of what we added here. It's just that swipe left motion and making sure you're in the latest version of the app if you don't see that. So that should cover the edit scenario. If there's any questions, let me know. That works on consolidated reports. It works on if you go ad hoc scouting, if anybody's using those types of features as well. Next, we'll cover the internal versus external notes. And so there's really 2 places we've built this in. The first is within the scouting forms themselves. So let's say I'm looking at a scouting template. This is my early corn template. And what I've done here, I'm going to clear this out. So let's say this is my template. With our new feature, what you can do is you can add in new questions. And so I'm going to add in an entirely new section called internal notes. I'm going to add a new text question, and we'll call this notes. This is what's new over here. If I zoom in, this is internal flag. So if I click on this, now what this means is this question in particular will only be shown to internal users. And if it's a grower or a client, you would set them up to not be able to see this. A couple scenarios that we designed this for. Let's say you have that junior scout that you're working with, and maybe they're new to weed insect disease ID. They could post an internal question. So let me show it over here as well. So I can add a new question in here called text question unknown insect, and mark that as internal. And so if you're a junior scout and you don't know what something is, you can just put that in the internal section, and then a head agronomist can review that, view the actual insect, and then assign that to the correct one. Say it's an armyworm, for example. So the internal note section can be flagged on any question within your template. So it doesn't have to be its own column or section within the report. So I'll save that out. So now we'll note that this is the early corn template, and it's set up with an insect unknown insect question and an internal column. The other thing we can do here is our field notes. You can have both internal and external. So when we talk about scouting, that's more of a session where it's that day and time you're out scouting. This is more of a generic field note. So what I'll do here, I'm going to grab a field that doesn't have any notes. Take this one down here. So this one doesn't have any notes. As you can see here, it says 0 notes in the top left. If I click on that 0, that's actually a clickable button that brings up the ability to create notes. So I'm going to add a new note, and in this case, I'm in the 2023 growing season. So I'm going to add the note in that year. And this is what's new. We have a public note versus internal note. So you could say something like, let's see, grower sprays low rates, check for resistance, or say, avoid the dog, for example. So that's all stuff that the client will not see. That's internal to me, and we'll say this is a public note. Everyone can see this one. Okay, so we made that note on this field 98, and what we'll note here is that right now I'm logged in on the mobile app as myself. So I'm the head agronomist of my account. I'm going to sync, so I've got those latest notes, and I'll just showcase what that looks like here. And so if I'm in the 2023 season, and I will go to that same field 98, and now you can see I have 2 notes. I'll go back into mobile mode again. So I have 2 notes here, and if I click on that, I will now be in the mode where I can view those. And again, I am the admin or scout, anybody who you flag as being internal, and I can see both those notes. So the internal, external, I can click on this, I can contribute to this. And so I can add this note, and now that's visible to everybody as well. Or sorry, visible to all of my internal users, my team, and I can see the external note as well. So that's the setup. So you enter either on the scouting side or the scouting notes, but now what I'll show is what it looks like to an internal user. And so to do this, I've set up I have a Gmail account I'm going to create as a grower. And so within this, if I go into users of my account, you'll notice I have this account set up already. And what I'll point out is that this is underneath the North Dakota farm specifically, and it's the grower role. But the key component of this feature is internal notes and responses. They're hidden to me. And so as you add users in here, those will be hidden by default. And so that you just make your team visible, the people that should be able to see these notes and the scouting internal notes. So that's the setup side. So now what you can see as a user, so if I log out here and log in as that other Gmail account, so now first of all, I've just got access to North Dakota farms. So instead of seeing my entire enterprise, this map is going to be restricted down to just North Dakota farms. Within this field 98, I'll see that there's 1 note instead of 2. As I click on that, I just see that public note. Everyone can see this. So in that case, on the other side where I was the admin, I was seeing that comment about grower sprays low rates, for example. So that is how that internal note works. Another trick I would share is that if you want to track notes for the grower in general, instead of having it be field specific, what we have people do is they just add a field around the farmyard. So you can say this is ND home place, and create that as a field. You can assign a crop of just like none or unknown or doesn't matter. But now within here, now if I take a note, this is where you can store notes about, let's say I just go an all season note and say Ben contact nation. We'll say put in information here. So now that is stored whenever you need to call the grower, contact the grower, if you got information about a contract with them or information about how they store their grain. I mean, that's just a kind of a generic notepad that you can use for the client, opposed to having it be specific to the field. So just a little trick we've seen customers use before. Now, what I'll do is on the mobile side, I'm still logged in as a super user, as a head agronomist. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to sync just so I have those template changes that I made to that corn template. So what we'll do is we're going to submit a scouting report, and it's going to be for a cornfield, but I'm going to add internal notes to it. So the field's 245, and as I add my observations, we'll say overall looks good. We'll add some plant conditions, growth stage. While I'm in here, we did add it. This might be new to you, but we have the option where you can actually multi-select within a pick list now. So you have that option to set it up on the scouting template side to allow multi-selects. So if you have a range of growth stages, that's a good use case for that. But what I'll call it now, so under, let's see, insects, there you go. So I have this unknown insect, so I could say, don't know, but I could take a picture. So we have this really nasty looking bug right here, take a picture of, and we'll attach that to the report. And then I will also do an internal note. So we'll say this field is very weedy. So as I submit that as an internal user, that's going back to the web view. But what you'll notice here is if I go immediately into that report, 245, and I generate that PDF, those internal notes will not be in this report. So you don't have to worry about a client seeing those, knowing that you entered them in the correct section. So now on this PDF, you'll notice that it doesn't mention anything about very weedy. It doesn't show that unknown insect question in here. Now what I could do so since this is my login just as the grower, if I view that same report digitally, I can see the same thing. I do not see those pictures. I do not see those internal notes. I don't think those should be shown that way, but there's no content in here. What I could do now is I'll log in as myself again, or as the head agronomist. Go. Farms. So now as I view that same report, but as myself as a head agronomist, let that load up here. Field 245. Now you can see that full report where it says unknown insect, question mark. So now I could pull it up and say, okay, that's maybe that's aphids. So then you come in here and you edit that report and say clear that out. So I'm going to reset the internal note question, and I'm going to say that was aphid pressure high, for example. Save that out, and now that's now visible to the client, and they can see that here. So that's how that works. Is you flag the user as either internal or external, and then when it comes to entering the data, it's setting up your scouting forms accordingly, or the notes. And then you can see that the PDF will not include those notes, the web view will. So hopefully that's what people were looking for with those notes. And again, our general idea here, or high level, is that we want FarmQA to be used as a grower portal. So as you add clients in here, you can set them up as a user, and then within here, they can just have access to your external notes. So you don't have to worry about, as I scout, am I saying something that the client shouldn't see? You can do that in the internal section. Okay, we'll jump into some of the PDF layout features that I talked about. So including the imagery on the map view, how you include the map drawings on the map. So we'll start with a few of those. So what I'll do, jump back onto the mobile side, and I am still the head agronomist, log in. So what I'm going to do in this case is, let's say, I guess I don't have any center pivots here. We'll talk through the scenario where I'm going to draw out the line for center pivot and have that be included on the main map. So in this case, field 247, I'll click on this, and let's see, do I have an irrigation template? Let's see what this one is. So in here, I can say irrigation amount. I can say date applied, for example. And let's see, irrigation amount, south, irrigation location, we'll say 180. So now within here, what I can do, and a scenario here might be an irrigation recommendation is a better example. This is more of just an input of the amount you applied. But now as I do this, let's say I want to click on the irrigation location question, I'm going to draw on the map. And so in this case, I've got my draw tools. And so what I'll do is I'm going to say, again, this is not actually a center pivot, but let's say I draw straight south. I said that was at 180. So I can do that. I'll draw that line. Additionally, I'm going to grab a second tool and say it's going, this direction. And I could draw that out and draw an arrow with it. And so with that, now I've got that separate drawing specific to where the pivot arm is located. So now I will submit this, and again, this is field 247. So as we note that as we go into the past reports, I've got 247 as a new report. So I will choose that. And now this is the key component to this feature, is that I can show my drawings on the main map right here. And so with that off, that shows, like we had last year, well, actually I'll just generate this as a separate little PNG within the PDF. And so in this case, this is still available to all clients, and you could have this as a separate map with a little label, irrigation location. Or the new style is to turn this on and say, I want that merged into my main map. And then we will export this as well. So now if I go to open PDF, we're going to see that this is merged into the main map. So there we have that, kind of the before and after of the two features there. So hopefully that's useful to people. I know that the pivot arm was a big one in that use case, but I've heard others as well, whereas they're just using those map draw tool options. And a big feedback piece we get is saying, I want my PDF condensed. I don't want multiple pages. So this is saving you a fair amount of real estate on that report, but still getting the ability to draw. So that was our intention there. Additionally, we talked about being able to view an NDVI image, or really any image, on the PDF report. So what I'll do here, and I'll just show a little trick along the way to make sure we have recent imagery. So right now in the spring, it could be a little challenging to get good imagery. And so in my case, I'm going to go on the main map details here. I can click show layers for multiple fields. And then I'm going to turn on my imagery. So in this case, I want to look at dynamic NDVI. And I'll click update. So that's going to show me all my imagery for the last 30 days across all my farms. And so you can see, like over here, for example, as I slide through that imagery, I can see the changes of that across all fields. And so in my case, I can just see on May 11th, let's see who's got an image for this one. So here's an image for May 11th. So I'm just going to do that so I know which field I can use to scout with, and it's going to have an image available to me. So what I'll do is I'm going to scout this field 113 over here. There we go. And we'll do this in the 2024 season. So what we'll do here is I'm going to click on the field, and we're going to scout. Looks good. Fill out the form. And now when I submit this, the PDF options, again, is where this feature lives. And so if I click on this one and I go PDF, now the key component here is this map type. So if I want an NDVI image included, I can click on the map type. Oh, sorry, there should be map layer. There we go, sorry. Map layer is what I meant to say. Map layer is what we're looking for. Right now it's set to none. And so when we say none, we'll get just a hollow map. So essentially what we're used to now on those reports. So again, I'll do a before and after. So there's the kind of standard map. Now if I generate that again, but this time with the map layer, and I'll go dynamic NDVI. Now we should get an NDVI image on that PDF report. And so here's that before and after. So there's the NDVI versus what we've had historically. A couple things to note here is once we do this, we do label that image. And so as the client's looking at that and say, when was that image actually taken? So this one's May 11th in this case. And with that, so this webinar is being recorded on the 14th. So in this case, it's 3 days old. So we label that just to be clear to the client what they're looking at. One thing to note right now is there's a window that we look back and we'll pull images from the last 10 days. And so if you don't have any imagery in the last 10 days, we still might not show anything here, even though you have that setting checked. And so that's something to be aware of as well, especially in the spring, as the NDVI images might just start trickling in this time of year. So that's included. Now, a couple of things that I mentioned before in the PowerPoint would be, now if you want to include that imagery, but as I mentioned, that 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, that might be kind of a small view for the grower to really see granular details in here. And so what they can do, or what you can do, is within the PDF options, there is this new option down here that's called full page map. And so simply turning that on and regenerating that PDF, it's now going to be the same content of the report, but it'll push that NDVI image onto page number 2, and it will give you a full screen view of that image. So just more detail available with that. And so you can also do this with multiple reports. So you can multi-select a dozen reports, and you can get page 1 is your scouting content, page 2 is your map. Now, while we're on this topic of a full map view, you may say, again, going back to report length, well, this is going to double my report length. Yes, in this case, a couple more practical use cases for this is within the recommendations. Actually, we added the ability to include a full page map on your recommendations. So for example, I'm going to write a batch recommendation, and let's just say I'm going to grab my soybean fields, in case these 4 fields, choose that, and I'm going to choose a mix. Let's choose one at random here, and I will submit that. So now I just generated this batch recommendation a few seconds ago. Now as I grab this report and go to my PDF settings, now a couple things that are new here. So that map type, this is new. So I can now have a trained label map. I could have a dark or a light background map to be included in my PDF. In addition, this field header style, I can also include that to have field shapes. So let me actually just generate one without a map just to show what the old style looked like. So we'll do that, and then we'll go with the new style as well. So if you want to include the details with shapes along with a full page map, we're going to generate that out. So here is the old style. So it really is just kind of the raw data where you've got the field names and the recs with the totals, and you can consolidate that more if you'd like. But then here is the new style. And so with this is what we're calling those mini maps on the right hand side. So you just get more or less the field shape. And so the idea here is, as the applicator is going out, they can see, as they know, okay, this one's the crescent moon shaped field. I know I'm in the right spot. But in addition to that, from a dispatching standpoint, we also include this last page where it's a consolidation of those fields all in one map. And then you get a breakdown of if you got legal descriptions in there, the variety, that sort of thing. So they could plan their route out to say maybe they're in the Northeast right now. They're going to hit this and go east to west and back north. So that is a new option, and you can turn those on independently. So if you don't want, let's say, these little field shapes, you could exclude that, but still get the full page map and vice versa. So you can play with those settings to get that report and those maps included on the recs. The other use case here, we have customers that use consolidated reports. And so this is a kind of a key one we added for consolidated reports. And in general, consolidated reports is a feature we added in late last year. So I'm going to just walk through that to make sure everybody knows what I'm referring to here. So in this case, I'm going to, let's just grab maybe my sugar beet fields. So there's my beet fields. So I can see those. And what I can do in this case, there's this plus button on the bottom right of the mobile app. So if I click on that, I can now do new batch scouting report. And this is just going to be for me to quickly create a series of reports. Note that you can do these field by field and then just consolidate them back on the PDF. But for the sake of time, I'm going to just batch create a bunch of identical reports. So in this case, I've got all these beet fields. So select. Click done. And let's see, I want to use I think I've got a beet template in here. Here you go. Sugar beet template. So in this case, this is a good scenario if you're just doing a quick, let's say, emergence check. Maybe you're just checking growth stage. Maybe you're looking for insects, let's say some cutworms, and you're doing, let's say we do a stand count. Sure. So there we've got a stand count. So I'm going to submit this. And what this will do, it's that batch process simultaneously created, I don't know how many I just did, 4 or 5 different reports, actually more than that. So like 7 reports that are all identical. And so again, this is where you come in from the mobile side and say, okay, well, I'm going to generate this batch scouting report because a lot of this content is the same, but I'm going to make a few tweaks now that it's submitted. So now within here, I can go to that first report. Yeah, I should, all those map controls are not letting me edit, but then I can edit these so that those are unique. So now if I grab these the Consolidated Report view is within this PDF option. Consolidated Reports. So within here, if I turn this feature on, what this will do is it'll take all those 7 fields and try to push that into one data table. And so what we can do here is we can adjust a few things. So I actually like to turn on the observations as rows. In this case, I will show the field names for the locations. And then in this case, where I was going with this initially was a full page map. So making sure that that is turned on. So now as I open my PDF, what this will look like, actually I'll do a before and after on this as well. So if I do this but not consolidated, open that up as well. So traditionally what we've had here is that since this is 7 fields, it's essentially going to be a 7-page PDF. On the new style, it's going to condense that significantly down. So let's just show, this is the old style where I've got, oh, I should have included a little mini map. Oh, I got the full page map on. So this is the first field with the map, second field with the map. And actually, let me do one more change on that. I would say more commonly what people have is this view. So with that, and then I will show the consolidation as well. Should be this one. So yeah, as that one's loading up, this is that report where I did all my sugar beet fields, and I've got 7 fields here. These are the field names, my growth stages, my cutworm assessment, and my populations. So in that case, it really condenses that data. But what I wanted to call out here is we also get that consolidated map. So in this case, you can see a lot of data. We had this consolidated report last year, but what's new is to be able to go full page map within the consolidated report so the client can see that with more detail. So that is one of the new styles. And then I was going to say this is I would say more of a traditional style in FarmQA where you've got a page per field with the map included. So field 49, field 78 with all the data there versus consolidated. So really it's 7 pages into one. I would mention that the consolidated report, it fits certain data better than others. So if you're doing very text heavy, if you're writing a big long description, that gets very challenging for us to put into these small cells. And so it does work better for, like I was doing here, growth stage, maybe a stand counts, yield assessments, where it's a lot of numeric data. All right, so that should be available to most everybody. The other thing I mentioned here is just how you can hide those observation pins. And so if you are doing, like in this case, you just did a single observation, and you want this data that you scouted to just be implied that it applies to the entire field opposed to just that one spot. And so what you can do here on the PDF options is to grab that field, and now what this is, it's hide observation indicators. And so if I turn that off, open the PDF, same data, it's just we will hide that pin. So it's just, like I said, there's some confusion with clients, the growers saying, well, you only check that one spot, or you wanted to really say this pertains to the whole field. So we've done that. That removes the pin. Let's see here. I think we've covered a lot of the content. Let me just review my notes here. I got the map drawings, full page maps, observations. Yeah, I think that's a lot of it. What I'll call out here is we did add in on the scouting template side. This is a change that came through last year, but it is the group questions. So this is an older one that I'm thinking a lot of people might be familiar with, but just to call this out quickly, if you had let's say an insect list that looked more like this, it was just kind of a flat list where you put a numeric count in each insect. A way you can change this is to go and add in what we call a group question. So this group option here. And then within here, you could say insects. And then you could add your sub questions underneath that. So you could say aphids, or sorry, I should do pick lists on this one. So I wanted to do a pick list and say insects, and then here you go, aphids. And then within that group, you can start to add in sub questions about, let's say, insect notes, insect pressure, low, medium, high. So with that, it really condenses that data down quite a bit better in the PDF. And so if there's anybody that's not familiar with that, that's a good option just to make the PDF look pretty crisp. So with that, I'm not seeing any more questions, and so I think we'll actually adjourn here. So if you have questions, feel free to send them to support@farmqa.com or directly to myself, and we can handle those off as one-off questions or feedback. But with that, I appreciate you joining today, and please tune in for future webinars. Thank you.